Okay.
You can kick us off.
Okay. Hello and welcome back once again to the HR Social Hour Half Hour Podcast. This is a very special episode. It's video, it's audio, it's John and Wendy talk to Steve Brown, Melanie Peacock, and Tracy Spangenberg. I'm your host, John.
And I'm Wendy. I would have pointed to people, but I don't know where they're going to show up when we're actually showing the video. So it's not like the Brady Bunch where we can I can say, hey, look a certain direction and you'll see that person, but that's okay. That's okay. This is, we did this with HR Wonder Women and we had a blast. It was a lot of fun. I think people enjoyed the conversation. And so I'm glad that we're doing it again with this group, a little bit different. We are letting some boys play, so we're being a little bit nice there. But this has been a great week. We've got a lot of fun stuff going on with Paycor this week for Missing Sherm 20. No travel.
No travel, but unfortunately, we don't get to see people. We don't get to hug, shake hands, whatever people are comfortable with. I want to briefly explain kind of how we got this cast of characters together. We had put the word out on Twitter that we asked people, hey, who are you going to miss hearing speak at SHRM National this year? Knowing we're not going to be there, who are you going to miss? And these three folks came up more than anybody else. Mm-hmm. Yes, thankfully, they're friends of the show. There have been previous guests on the show. A couple of them have won our trivia nights. So there's a lot of connection here, and we were thrilled that they agreed to do this, again, this grand experiment. Because, hey, we haven't done video like this before. Hopefully people are watching this. John, you're an idiot because you should have been doing it already. But, hey, that's cool. So we're not going to do introductions. We're going to let the individuals introduce themselves. We're just going to go alphabetically by last name. So, Steve?
Hi, I'm Steve Brown. I'm new to HR, and I'm really excited to be there. I love this social media and this Zoom video thing on YouTube. It's fun to be here, and I'm glad the boys were allowed.
How about you, Melanie?
Hi, everybody. I'm Melanie Peacock, and I'm zooming in from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I'm old in HR. So we got I'm in the twilight of my career, and I have nothing to do with vampires. Next.
This is how it's going to go. I know. This is how it's going to go.
I don't know how I can follow that. And thankfully, you have the introvert go last. So I'm Tracy Spangenberg. I'm going to have the most boring introduction. I'm the Chief People Officer for the Granite Group, and I'm based in Concord, New Hampshire. And I'm really excited to be here. So this will be a lot of fun. I have nothing exciting. I can't top that. I just can't do it.
Oh my God. I love it. This is, our first question always, what is in your glass? So, if we were together, we know it would be obviously something fermented. So tonight, I'm going to go backwards with this question because I think I know what Tracy's going to say.
I know what Tracy's going to say.
Probably do.
I think we know what Tracy's going to say. Tracy, what's in your glass
there you
tonight?
Go. Raspberry, lime, spindrift.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. I love that. And I'm so happy
good.
Target has it.
I
Target
know.
Spindrift.
I know. Have you had the cranberry raspberry? That's the best.
I have not had cranberry. I did have blackberry a while ago.
That's
I think
good
trivia
too.
night I had the blackberry and I really liked that. So
very good.
Yes. Melanie, what are you drinking?
Well, to be not predictable, I'm having water. Chateau Aqua. But I have it in my fancy peacock cup.
Nice.
So there we go.
Very nice. But I know Steve's drinking something that is fermented.
Absolutely, because I'm in HR, and I'm not afraid to tell people that I drink alcohol. I'm drinking a Rheingeist Calmer. It's a Kolsch style ale with lemon and cucumber.
Ooh.
Oh.
Interesting.
It's very interesting. It's good.
Very good.
It sounds a little gross, but I bet it probably is good if you like that kind of thing.
Well, it sounds like
lemon and cucumber.
It's nothing like flavored, flavored water. I mean, come on.
That sounds delicious if it was water.
I'm in the room. I mean, I'm in the Zoom. Behave yourself.
John, we have already lost control.
I knew that was going to happen.
We knew that was going to happen. But okay, so I have to ask John, what are you drinking tonight?
I am enjoying a Legend Brown from right here in Richmond, Virginia.
Very nice. Well, I just got home from Eponymous, where I had a blood orange Weizen, which is their wheat beer, which is very, very delicious, which is why right now I have water. I primed. I went priming. Because that's what you do in a college town. You prime before the event.
I like it.
Nothing wrong with that.
Great.
I'm learning all kinds of stuff tonight, apparently. Never thought about it that way, but fair enough. Fair enough. Well, like we mentioned earlier, one of the reasons that we wanted to have you on is that when we asked people who are you going to miss speaking at National, you were the names that came up more than others. And so instead of asking you how you got in HR, because you've answered that before, I am going to ask each of you, can you talk a little about what you were going to be speaking on? So Melanie, I'll start with you.
So thanks. No, I can't talk. No. I really thought, wow, I was in some ways, I went, wow, did I dodge a little bullet here? Because I was actually going to talk about terminations. And it's a really sensitive topic right now, given what we've all been experiencing and going through. So the actual title of my session was The Hardest Part of HR is Letting Go. And I was going to talk about, because it is almost the elephant in the room, right? We don't like to talk about, that is often part of our job, People will always say to me, oh, you're in HR, you must like people. And I'll say, oh yeah, I like people. I like to tell them they're not doing their job properly. I like to tell them they're not getting a pay increase. Oh, and I like to tell them they're fired. Oh, So it's hard, right? We don't want to talk about terminations. And there is nothing funny about it because this is people's livelihoods. This is right. But we also have to be able to recognize the process. There is a right way to do it. And I was also going to talk a lot about attending to our own care as HR professionals during the process. We don't talk a lot about that, about what it takes out of us and what we need to do before, during, and after terminating someone, severing from their employment. So that's what I was going to talk about. And boy, given what we've all experienced and we've heard about the Zoom, Zoom terminations and we hear about people breaking up over Zoom. There's a new term, John, you're learning lots of things. You've just been zumped.
Who knew?
Wow.
You knew.
Wow.
You knew. I didn't.
You knew.
Yeah, so there you go. So Zerminated, I don't know. Zoominated, I don't know what it is. But
Zired? Is that what happens when you're
Zired? I like that.
You've been zired.
That's what I was going to talk about.
I like that, Melanie. I like that you were also going to include the well care on the HR professional because, the last place I worked, so you guys know me, I'm usually in TA. I love recruitment. I love that part of it. And at my last job, I was more of a generalist. And my daughter, who was young, used to tell people, well, my mom used to hire people and now she fires people.
Wow.
And because that's what what I would talk about at home was that piece of it, because it was hard and it's not easy and you have to process through that. So I think that was good to have some of that focus on not just how do you care for the employee, but how do you care for yourself? Because that's not easy. That's not easy at all. No,
Absolutely.
I think that's good.
I've lots of stories that I still hope I can share one day. And Steve says many times, right? Steve Brown says, and you're right, Mr. Brown, that we have to share, support, and connect with one another and share our stories and be there for each other. So that's what I was hoping to do, but fingers crossed that there'll be other opportunities.
I'm sure.
Tracy, how about you?
So last year I spoke, and I love that. I'm sorry to have missed that, Melanie's topic, especially the self-care part, because I think that's so important. We don't talk about that often enough. Last year I spoke at SHRM. I spoke about overhauling your HR department through technology, even if you're a department of one. And in that session, at the end of the session, I get some feedback that, that's great, but what's an ATS? So I made some assumptions that people understood what the technology was. And I sort of assumed that, but I realized, and I should know this because I spoke about this often enough that not all HR professionals have even a baseline knowledge of HR technology. So my session this year was going to be ATS, LMS, HRIS, and everything in between. So it was going to be a basic explanation of what HR technology is and what you may need if you are a department of one, small HR department, and onward.
Tracy, I just thought of a subtitle for your presentation.
Yes.
Old MacDonald had an HR system. A-E-I-O-U-E-I-E-I-O.
That's so clever.
Love it.
I should have called you.
I'm here all week.
I should have called you before I submitted it. So it really basic, but there's a need for that. There's a need for that for the entry level HR post, or those of us who've been in it for 1,000 years, like me, who may not have that basic understanding.
You're absolutely right, Tracy. I'll use the term ATS every once in a while, and people look at me sideways like, what? Okay, how you hire people. Way to document hiring, whatever. That's great, and that would have been very interesting too. Yeah. Steve, how about your presentation? What were you going to be speaking on?
I had a new one. I've been fortunate to speak several times, and I don't want to recycle. One of the things I heard though one time at SHRM is that SHRM's annual conference is so large that you may use the same presentation several years and get different audiences every time. Because there's different demographics. But what I was going to speak about was a new thing called It's Okay to Be Human in HR. And not about the H in HR, but we don't take care of ourselves, as you mentioned, Melanie, at all. We forget that we're people. And I think when we lose our humanity as HR professionals, it shows in how we practice HR in our organizations. And we're afraid to be ourselves. Whatever that means, good, bad, faulty, geeky, whatever it is. My thing is, the more human you are, genuinely human. So I was on a call earlier this morning with Eric Kershat, and he says, gosh, when you're on stage, you laugh and you cry and stuff. And I'm like, because I'm a person. And
what? You're a what?
A what? I know.
What was that?
But too many people in HR put on the HR face, or the corporate mask, or the different hats. And unfortunately, we keep perpetuating these myths and these expectations and these stereotypes instead of saying, strip it down, be a human, and watch how your HR practice actually improves the more genuine you are.
I think a lot of times we mistake being neutral with being unfeeling. You have to be neutral. And so then you get to this place where you can't be excited for people. You can't feel sorry for people. You can't show that emotion. So I think that's a great place to remind us. Mm-hmm. I like that. I like that you and Melanie were including, here's you, the HR professional, in your talk, and how you as a person need to take care of yourself.
I think it's a place to equip ourselves where we haven't.
Yeah.
We talk about coaching for others. We talk about professional development for others, which is all great. But who's pouring into us? Not from a self-centeredness standpoint, but equipping yourself. And if you're healthy, you'll be healthy. If you're not healthy, you'll be ugly as anything towards everybody.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, one of the things that, and I'll be honest, I was a little surprised that SHRM National didn't do any virtual piece of the national conference. I thought that was coming. But I'm sure that you guys have had to make some adjustments and switch some of your in-person to virtual. So let's talk about that a little bit and how you prep, because it's different. So tell us a little bit about how you adjust your prep when you're doing, okay, I know I'm going to do virtual and I'm going to do a webinar versus I'm going to be in front of people. So we'll start with Steve. How about you?
I'm going to start with a horror story, which is
all
awesome.
Right. Yay, horror stories.
I was on a call because a friend asked me to be on a local call, a local networking group, and they had a person about being professional virtually. And I'm like, neat. So when you see this on YouTube, audience, my basement is my basement. It's got lava lamps. It's got tie-dye, because it's who I am. So in the presentation, she says, you must be professional. and stage your background and dress properly.
Ugh.
And she went through this whole thing. I said, are you talking about me? And she goes, well, and I said, well, you know, I said, that's cool. And all the other people in the recording are like, oh no, she doesn't know that he's a speaker. She doesn't know that he does this. And what's funny is, again, it's how you choose. You can come across as staged, and I know several people, professional speakers, friends of ours, who are setting up studios in their basement so it looks like they want to look. Greg Hawkes has his lifeboat because he talks about the lifeboat. There's all kinds of cool stuff to do. I think you need to do preparation that makes you feel comfortable to present, and I'm more comfortable just being myself. I don't want to fake it.
I see.
Yes, love it.
Got that. Melanie, I see Melanie's got a teddy bear or something behind her.
Yeah, that was my mom's teddy bear when she passed last year. That came one of the many things that came with her. So it's there, right? It's part of, and people have asked me about it. And so I share that story with people that ask, and
that's who you are. That's who you are. How about you, Tracy? How do you prep?
Yeah, and I love that about the background, Steve, because this is my office. So my husband and I have each have separate offices. It's get doors. It's great. And these, Melanie, these posters are from my parents' house. So in my childhood home. Cool. So I'm not super nostalgic, but when they moved, I was like, I want those posters and I want them in my office when I have them. So I have my husband and my kids, and I have baby Yoda back there, and so if I'm surrounded all day, I'm, surrounded by things that are important to me. And I sit at my craft table, which I've never crafted on in my life, but it's a great wrapping. I have you can see all these little jars and things back there. And so I had grand ambitions, but it's just a comfortable space. I have a couch and pillows. And so I just present here. And I think the presenting virtually versus in person, the preparation is similar because you still have to be prepared. I find that when I present in front, like at a conference, I feed off the audience. So if I'm recording something, I find it very, very difficult. So it's for me, it's much more difficult because you don't get that interaction. If I'm doing something live and there's some kind of chat, that's great. Like HR Summer School, even though that was recorded and played, was wonderful because you could then get on and chat with people as they were going through. So the preparation's the same, but the feeling's a little bit different.
Cool. How about you, Melanie?
Always fun things to do when you're preparing, right? So you have to think about, so I'm going to do Steve Brown here, and there's my virtual.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's outstanding.
Because I do that too, depending on the audience. And as I see the sunlight shining in here, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to turn the blinds. It's the blind leading the blind here. Anyway, you just have to be yourself. Absolutely. And I interject humor when I talk to my students, when I talk to an audience. So that's who I am. You try and be natural. You try and be yourself. It is weird. Tracy's absolutely right. When there's no interaction and there's no feedback, but you just have to really be passionate about what you're talking about. That's really always been my thing. My students will say, wow, you really like HR, don't you? And I'm like, shh, don't tell, yes. And if I'm going to talk to somebody about whatever it is, it's something that I'm passionate about. And something I believe we need to talk about and we need to share knowledge about. And I think that really comes across. The other quick story I'll tell is, never mind being professional, Steve, I had to remember I had the pleasure of speaking for a chapter in India through our friend Anish invited me, right? And so this has all expanded our world, right, in weird ways. But the time change, holy for holy. So I had to remember we had a pre-talk and we planned. So you make sure you've done your pre-work, and I'm saying, okay, I got to go to sleep now. And his son's coming in and going, breakfast is ready. And I'm like, what? Okay. But then I had to set my alarm clock and get up at some god awful hour on a Saturday morning. And, I didn't want to wake up with my sleep, and I had to wake up early enough to kind of wake up my eyes and everything so that I could look presentable. I think I was up at 5 a.m. my time.
Oh gosh.
Well, so how do you prepare? There's no preparing for that, man. You just go. You remember to comb your hair, and you just go with it.
When John and I spoke with Anisha's group, that was kind of the same thing. It was like, all right, I'm actually gonna shower, kind of do my hair, maybe put on a little makeup because they've been up. I shouldn't look like I just rolled out of bed.
I did an interview with India, and I'm doing a podcast coming up, and it was, super early, but what a cool opportunity. So
Yeah.
what a cool thing that we can do now.
Yeah.
And I did a presentation from England, or with a guy who created a conference in England. It's just what a neat world.
And I think that's the cool thing now too. And I think, as sad as it is, the pandemic has really opened up a lot of that, where there's more virtual events happening. Even when in local, we had a Brookings event in my town this morning where Kate Bischoff talked, and we had it via Zoom. We had more people show up than when we had it in person. So I'm like, well, maybe we need to do this more.
Yeah.
Because people, maybe you can't come when we're going to have it at a location and you have to come there. But if we can do it virtually, maybe we need to do that more. So I think, there's some good that's coming out of this for sure.
I think the key is people that are engaging on all the time are engaging online as well. Those people that tend to perform and practice and recite are horrible virtually. Because they're waiting for the slide to go ding to click, like what? And if anything throws them, it's awful. So I think if you have to remember you're conversing, even though you may not see somebody in front of you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Let's expand on that a little bit, because that's something that Wendy and I have talked a lot about. Especially when I first did my first couple webinars, felt like I was just spitting in the wind, right? It's a vast void, and you hope people are maybe chuckling, maybe doing something. If they say I suck, well, I don't know, something out there to get some response. How do you engage that audience when it is virtual like that? Steve, we'll start with you, because you kind of started talking about it a little bit. What do you do differently, or how have you approached that when you're doing it?
I've talked to the groups that I've talked to ahead of time. What works best? I said, look, I wouldn't want to sit in front of slides for an hour. I just wouldn't. So if you don't think your audience would, what if we tried this? What if we put an interactive thing? Johnny Campbell on the SHRM Talent did the best virtual presentation I have seen yet. HR Summer School was amazing, but he did Zoom, presented, did his slides, and then read from the chat all at the same time. So he had a conversation, but he never let anyone verbally talk, but he built it in. So he had something going all the time. And then somebody says, boy, could you go back to that slide? And he went backwards and forwards. Wow. I just think it's a lot. You have to understand that you have to ask, how am I going to engage with the audience, not just expect that they're going to sit there and listen.
I think that's important. You look at it as a conversation, like we're all talking about, not as a presentation so much. So I'm incapable of being anything but authentic. So I can't over rehearse. I know I spend a lot of time if I have to build slides, which I hate slides, but if I have to build slides, I spend time making sure I know, but I just know I present on things that I'm very comfortable with. And, but I don't look at it as presenting so much as conversing.
And then I'll share something that might seem so obvious, but I'll state the obvious, that I took some sessions and read some literature about presenting online. And one of the ways you can be engaging to your audience is you have to think about things like your posture, like your hand movements. They actually said to maybe move into the screen a little bit. Hello? No, that's a little scary.
Do we all sit up? Yeah.
We all need to adjust. Everyone starts moving.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you have to use your voice, right? And use your diaphragm and use your intonation. And you have to be a little more engaged than maybe you would if you were presenting in front of 10 people. And especially since if you don't have the immediate feedback. I miss that snoring. She does it. Right? And you have to be energetic yourself, and I think that's part of that authenticity. But you really have to almost in some ways be, not all the time, but you have to over animate a little bit at certain points. I found that works.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I think it was Tim Sackett had shared some tips, and that's where I got the idea to do the HR Wonder Woman virtual panel, where we would record it and then watch it together, and then we can interact and we can talk to people and we can get that feedback going back and forth, which is, kudos if someone can do that, but that's hard to do, to give a presentation while you're virtual and keep up with the comments and, and do all of that. That's hard to do. So, doing it this way it's one step removed from that, but at least we can still have that interaction. We can still have that conversation going on. So I think that's what we do. We make those connections. That's why we exist as HR Social Hour, quite honestly. So let's take that to the next level, because people like it. I think people are enjoying this. So what are some ways that that you guys think conferences can evolve to protect their participants, but still get that in-person connection that attendees seem to enjoy? Because we want to be protected, we want to be safe. No one wants to get COVID. So how can we have it both ways? Melanie, I'm going to pick on you.
Thanks. So I was just at a fantastic event last week hosted by our provincial HR association, where we had a networking session. So it was very conference-esque. It would have been like the after-hours soiree get-together for a conference. And then they had us in virtual breakout rooms. And we randomly got put in the breakout rooms with a question. And so then the group would, and then we'd come back as a larger group, and one person from the breakout room, each was numbered, would share the key findings from the group. So it was a way to still promote small and then larger group interaction, a feeling of connection, and yet keep us safe and protected. And I know this isn't a direct answer to the question, Wendy, but I want to make this point too while we're talking about it, is that I hope we use the lessons that we've learned now going forward in order to enhance and increase our interaction with our colleagues. And again, I'm biased, I'll fully admit it. As Steve would always say, full transparency, not my book, Steve, not my book, but my dissertation, my doctoral work was all about blended delivery. I was either so ahead of the times or so far behind, I haven't decided which yet. But really important, right, that we capture, it doesn't have to be an either or. We can use face-to-face when it's safe again, and we can capture what we've learned about online and get the best of both worlds. And that's another thing I really would invite everybody who's listening. Let's not lose these conversations. Journal, diarize what you've liked, what's gone well, and let's use that going forward. I think we can pivot. We're on a precipice here to learn and capitalize on what's happened.
I like that. How about you, Steve?
When you said diarize, I was thinking of dioramas. Do you remember making those?
That's what I thought too.
Oh.
That's what I was thinking too.
It's the T-Rex. The T-Rex eats the caveman. Ah! So
I want to see a diorama of a conference.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
All right.
You got a big shoebox for that. You got
there we
really
go.
big, and plenty of popsicle sticks.
I think taking from Ben Eubanks in HR Summer School, it was a mix. You had fireside chats, which were one-on-one. You had full-blown presentations, so you're breaking it up. But I felt the whole virtual event was very audience-centric. I watched the Festival of Work through CIPD overseas, and it was not. It was very traditional. They had panels like this, a 3-person panel, or they'd have a presenter, but that was about as much as they were willing to be non-traditional. I think conferences in general would improve if they would focus on the audience instead of the content. So the content has to be solid. If you have a speaker who's not bringing good content, shame on you. But you have to say the experience of the audience and the takeaways that they can take to improve themselves and their jobs has to be a better focus in all conference planning, whether it's virtual or in person. So to Melanie's point, I think you need to take the blended approach, but put the audience piece first instead of let's get Steve Brown. I wouldn't see myself. I mean, come on. You gotta take a look at the audience and go, what am I going to give them to make them better? And if you don't have speakers that want to do that, they shouldn't be at your conference.
I like that, rather than focusing on, okay, well, we need to find these pieces to fit our overall goal or whatever, but figuring out what your audience wants. What do they need? And giving that to them.
And Tracy learned that, remember? She said,
yeah,
I was speaking with good content and I found out my audience wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
It's not wrong, but boy, now that you've learned that, we can improve and make it better for the audience.
Yep.
Which I tried to do. but not so fast. I think it's interesting. We've learned as HR professionals, we've known that remote work was a good option for a long time. As companies, we're learning that. And some companies certainly were ahead of the game. And a lot of us, or a lot of our people, are going to demand, I want to work from home. This works great. I wonder if we're going to see that in the conference sector. If we're seeing that, well, this is working for me. I can do this from home. Why would I pay $3,000 and fly across the country? So I'm really very curious. I think to both Steve and Melanie's points, I think that a blended approach is great. Definitely audience first, but I think this may change the conference, arena significantly, at least for a while. I mean, I know I'm dying to get out and see everybody. I don't want to do that anytime soon. No offense to any of you. I would love to see you in person, but I'll take a 2D for now. But I think we're going to see a shift.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah,
I absolutely agree. And it's what's interesting in me is the self-avowed comic book nerd here. I'm watching what we're doing in the comic book convention circuit too, and it has changed dramatically. And DC Comics, for example, is having a online event. San Diego Comic-Con, the largest Comic-Con in the world with 150,000 attendees, is going to be online, virtual. Now, as somebody that collects original art, that's really hard to do. Like, I can't hand you my sketchbook to have you draw stuff for me. But those panels, those conversations can be going on. And what's been interesting too is very similar to what we've seen, like with summer school and some of the other events that are going on, expanding those things. So, conventions, so comic book convention, for example, will have every night they have something. So you can meet Burt Ward, you can meet XYZ artist, you can meet, and segment it out to where people can attend all these different things all the different times.
I would love to meet Burt Ward.
Right?
He's still out there doing stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He owns a dog food company.
Oh, wow.
Like organic dog food. Yeah, he's like, that's his big thing. He's been very active in that community for a long time.
So he can literally say his career went to the dogs.
That's right.
Oh my God.
That's right. And if you saw the crisis,
holy puns, Melanie, holy puns.
If you saw the Crisis on Infinite Earths that they did on the CW, Burt Ward is in the opening walking a dog wearing Robin's colors. He's not wearing it out. He's not wearing a costume, but he's walking orange, green, and yellow.
He was my first love.
Wow.
I have a fun story.
I have learned something else new tonight.
You have. I have a fun story. I'll tell you sometime about that. That was fun. So you've probably heard of E3, John.
Oh yeah.
So my son has wanted to go. He's 21 almost his whole life, and so shortly after COVID started, his dad was like, Jackson, I bought us E3 tickets. I was going to surprise you, but it's been canceled. And he's like, I wish I never knew, because he never knew. So he almost went, but wouldn't. And who knows when they'll have that again.
Right.
I'm going to watch Disney World. That's what I'm going to watch. I'm a huge Disney fan. I'm going to watch what they do. They have everything. Yeah. They have shows, they have rides, they have, they have conventions. So I'm going to watch closely what they do to see, because I think a lot of things will follow suit.
Yeah. I'm on the docket to speak at HR Florida in late August.
I know you are.
Yeah. And so I'm watching it carefully. I don't want to cancel, but I also need to keep myself and my family safe. So, there's a lot of stuff that's up in the air that it's not fun, but we do, this is the year of hard decisions.
Yeah.
I'm just going to, we're going to have some disappointments this year for sure. I know my daughter was supposed to take an 8th grade trip to DC.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. Hopefully next year they'll take the 9th graders too, but just one of those things that happens.
It's turning into a bummer.
It is. It is.
All right. All the other things we've lost. That'd be great.
I know you want me to start a list.
Let's start the list.
I feel like I'm at one of my presentations is just people are dying.
Damn it, Steve's talking again.
Speaking of when conventions come back around, and Tracy, I'm going to ask you first since you started to broach the subject a little bit. What are you most looking forward to when we're able to get back together again, and we collectively, when there is some type of HR convention, conference, event in person. What are you most looking forward to in that?
Definitely seeing all of you and all. So you all know my story that I, went to SHRM for years and didn't talk to a soul. And so it was only last year that I met all of you. I didn't meet Steve last year. I met Steve a little bit later, but I know I never met him at SHRM. I had the full body rash and all kinds of illness. And so it was fun. It was a fun few days, but yeah, definitely that. I think you can try, but you just can't replace that in-person connection. I'm looking forward to hugs coming back. I'm looking forward to handshake or at least a fist bump, so that's for sure. That's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Tracy, thanks for saying hugs, because I thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to be incorrect here, but people that know me know I'm a hugger, and I also know to ask. We'll say, if you're not a hugger, I respect that, but it's just to see people. And when we signed on today, my face lit up when I saw Wendy. She and I were here first. My whole face lit up. I was so excited to see her. But it's not the same as seeing the whites of somebody's eyes, and just, I'm really looking forward to hugging anybody that's willing to hug, and that hopefully we can do that safely, and it's really something I miss. And there's many lovely conferences and many great events, but I know that the annual SHRM conference for me, especially being from Canada, being one of the international people, was like a marker in my year. And even my family said, like, it was, we have Christmas and we have, the end of the academic year for me and convocation. There's certain things, but for me, the SHRM year or conference was another one of those events, right? It really marked the year, seeing everybody again. We kind of all joked when we left last year. We were saying, well, see you in 364 days. Oops, I hope we didn't jinx it. But, we were just saying that we look forward to it. It helps us mark some time. And we talk about it a lot, and people kind of go, really? What? But the bonds you form with people, like, you're not just colleagues, you're actual friends, and we really care about each other. I remember when Tracy, you mentioned it, it's out there, you had your
that's fine. Yeah.
She was making rash decisions.
Yes. Yes. Yes, you were so kind.
That's what happened. I was so
worried. That's a drinking game for the show. When we're watching, every time Melanie
makes a pun,
you need to take a drink.
But I was so worried about Tracy. That like, I thought she had to present the next day. I was
so worried about Tracy too. It was the morning of my presentation. Full body rash, contact dermatitis. Yeah, it was fun.
But Dave was
you were
great.
So kind.
There for you.
Great.
No, Dave was there, but we genuinely care about one another, and it's really nice. It's not just fake, and we can do this online, and we've done a great job staying connected. And our HR community, our online community, is strong and solid and welcoming. Anybody who's new listening to the show today, connect. We welcome new people, and it's not just some online buzz thing. It's real. No. It's the real deal. That's a good segue to Steve, the real deal.
Oh my gosh, I ran out of beer. I need to get more beer.
Go ahead. We'll wait. Go ahead.
We're going to drink. I think the thing that we need to remember is the same connection we have is what all people want. So it's fortunate that we've reached each other online and we've known each other, some of us, for years. However, there's a chance to meet all new people, whatever venue we're at, and to get them to understand that what they do matters, that they're valued as people, that their work is valued. I like talking to you guys because you're my friends, but I turn around and meet the people I don't know. And honestly, if I could walk down the hall of SHRM Annual with my arms open, I would see people run into there and hug, whether they were freaked out or not, because people are aching for that contact. They just are. So I think the idea of not getting together concerns me, not from any other matter than human interaction. People want to learn in person. They want to laugh in person. They want to discuss in person. They want to go out and have a good meal in person. We're missing the human interaction. That's my biggest concern of all.
Steve, I'm right there with you. I think we have been incredibly fortunate what we have seen in the online community and how connected we have stayed, and not even many of them even stronger. The bonds have gotten stronger over the last many months with everything that's gone on. Wendy and I are personally very proud of everything we've tried to do to entertain and make things a little easier for other people. but I miss that too. I miss breaking bread is my favorite thing. And, you know, look at me, I like to eat, but that is my favorite part of these, of conferences, is going and particularly going to a place and discovering new food, but with people and having those conversations and learning about what's going on, not only professionally, but for them, but personally. And it's amazing. I think back to some of the experiences I've had with some of you, and particularly with Wendy and some of the people we've had those experiences with. And it's amazing. It's really funny. Some of the things, you know, some of the really laughable stuff, and some of the things that, you know, are a little more serious. And that's what I really miss as well.
Well, and those are the pictures that people are sharing. You know,
Yes.
the memories that are popping up, the people are like, hey, 2 years ago we were in Chicago, last year we were in Vegas. And, you know, even you know, 3 years ago, some of you were in New Orleans and John and I weren't. And, you know, here we are because we were missing that connection. And so this all born out of missing that in-person connection. So I love where we've come. I love how far we've come, and that we get to do something like this and have this conversation. So I think that's fantastic. So, but I'm going to switch the mood a little bit because, you know, for some reason I start talking and we start getting all maudlin and sad and, oh, woe is us. Let's talk about something fun that you have discovered since we first went into lockdown. It could be a movie, it could be a TV show, it could be some movie that's been out forever and ever and ever and you've never seen it before. So, Steve, you look like you have something to say.
My wife and I have been watching Outlander.
Oh.
And it's great because it's romance and violence. It's wonderful. But it's a historical drama, and we are hooked. And we've watched every episode. Now we're one of those couples that we've never been the couple who go, oh, I have to wait for the next season. And we just started Schitt's Creek, and I laugh so hard. Yay, Canada. I'm just telling you.
Yes.
Hilarious stuff.
Yeah.
But the time with my wife as empty nesters has been the best part of lockdown, because it wasn't that our relationship was distant, but now you're allowed to be together all the time. And I kind of like it. I like it a lot. You know, she's chosen to keep me, and I'm very fortunate.
She's reminding herself right now why she loves you. No.
She's like, you're on a Zoom call with people I don't know.
Goodbye.
Right.
How about you, Tracy?
So Dave and I have actually, we've always gotten along great, but we figured we'd kill each other during this, and it's been exactly the opposite. We've had a great time. And so I've discovered a lot of like fun. I've read a lot more. I haven't, you know, I don't have a lot more time actually, because it's been really crazy, but I've read a lot more, some really fun mystery novels, and a lot of garbage TV, but a lot of great shows. A lot of garbage TV, and a lot of great shows from For All Mankind we loved on Apple TV, and we watched The Expanse, and happened to be a lot of space shows for some reason. And then we started watching, and this is when, Outer Banks. And so my husband picked it, and he's like, it's on Netflix. And so we're watching it. I'm like, it's like a treasure hunting show, we thought. And so our 16-year-old comes in, she's like, are you guys watching Outer Banks? And it's like the hottest teen show, apparently. And then as we get into it, it's like literally the hottest teen show. And we got into it, we're like, this is totally for everybody's like 16, and I love you and I can't live without you. And it's so funny. But we couldn't stop watching it because we needed to see what happened. And then we got to the end and we're like, oh yeah, now we need to go. So yeah, totally watching a show that our young girls love. So
Love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Melanie, how about you?
It's interesting, you know, a lot of people, and Tracy and Steve have shared this about time with family, and I too have, up until a few days ago, been working nonstop. So I'm now officially on holidays. I was sharing that I finished my role as faculty association president, and so I'm on my summer vacay, which means I still do the reading, the writing, the arithmetic, the whatever, right? Keep busy. But it has been great to reconnect with family, because my family has been, you know, my rock, the kidults and my husband Cam, for reminding me that I need to wind down at the end of the day and chillax. You know, it's not that important. And to watch some of that here in en français, Tracy, we call it the crapé TV. Crap TV, you know? Crapé TV, television du crap. Yeah, well, so we do some of that, but we've also, Cam and I, we like detective series, so we binge watched Bosch on Crave, love that, and now we're watching Billions. And I have to say, I am just loving that show. I cannot rave enough about it. It's like watching a soap opera almost. It's like Dallas. Now I really am showing how old I am. But it's with the financial markets instead of the oil and gas industry. But the characters, you know, there's not one of them to like, and yet you like them all. So I'm not missing work at all. And it's, but the acting is, they're just so talented. Like, I'm in awe of how they draw you in, and the characters and the human interaction, right? We are HR people. When I watch shows like that, I continue to be fascinated. And I know this is, you know, a TV show, and I get so into it, and the kids will say, "It's TV, Mom." I'm like, yeah, but, you know, because it is fascinating how people interact, and the scheming, and yet the caring, and the self-preservation, and yet the altruism. And anyway, that's a long answer. Billions.
No, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Wait, how about you two?
I was just going to say, John needs to answer now.
Oh boy.
I listen, I don't have any secrets. I'm very transparent. I have renewed my passion and interest in professional wrestling in the last many months. I got a subscription to WWE Network. I watch it all the other. I'm primarily watching stuff from the 80s and 70s and 80s, watching all the old territory television shows. I grew up on Memphis Wrestling, which was Jerry Lawler when he wrestled Andy Kaufman and that whole bit. That's what I grew up doing, and I love it. But I also I'm very, very smitten with a Japanese female wrestler named Asuka, who's wrestling now. She's just cute as a button, and she has her own YouTube channel where she has hundreds of thousands of followers because she hardly speaks English. So I watch these crazy videos where she speaks Japanese about traveling and eating, and she plays video games. She's just a character, and I think she's absolutely adorable. And I almost bought an action figure of her, and I thought about it, and I was like, I don't know if Heidi would be too hip to that. And she saw her, and she's like, who is this person? And I'm like, her name's Asuka. She's a wrestler. I think she's absolutely adorable. She's a character, doesn't speak English much, and you know, but she's very, very talented. I understand it's all predetermined, right? But these these people are incredibly talented performers, athletes. They get hurt if people don't do the right things. It's soap opera in tights, like, right? I mean, as one of my friends said, it's comic books come to life. And so anyway, yes, with everybody worried about whatever's out there, I'll just say it. I'm watching it. I don't care what anybody thinks. I think it's entertaining as hell, and I've had a lot of fun doing it.
That's great.
Love it.
Love it.
And Wendy, what about you?
I've mostly had reruns of old favorite shows playing in the background of life when I've been home working since the beginning of April, so I can't really focus on anything new. So Scrubs and Community, The Good Place, the first 3 seasons of The Good Place. Come on, Netflix. That was Maggie and my show, and it was funny because we were talking about it, and she's like, well, why isn't the 4th season on yet? I'm like, Maggie, it only ended like 3-4 months ago. I realized that the last 3 months have seemed like a year. Because there's been a lot going on in not just in life, but in our family. And so one of the new things we picked up, Maggie and I started watching Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, which
I haven't seen that yet.
A little more heartfelt than I really expected. Like, we just got done crying over The Good Place. I didn't really want another cry show, but there's been a few of those. And then obviously Bob's Burgers is a big one in our family, so we try to catch that. But the horrible parents that we are, my husband and I and our 10-year-old like watching What We Do in the Shadows. Terribly, very not child appropriate in any way, shape, or form, but we love Matt Berry in this house. I was very surprised. I was watching the final season of Community, which was the Amazon season, Matt Berry is in an episode of that, which I don't know if I didn't see it or whatever. I completely forgotten about it. Watched it like 3 times in a row because I was like, it's Matt Berry. And I don't get that way over, over celebrities that I'm like, oh my God, I have to, it's Matt Berry. I have to see it. So that's, crap TV, bad TV, crazy bad sitcoms. We love those in our house. But if there's singing involved, we're probably going to jump on those as well. So that's what's been happening in the Daily household.
Wendy, I think you just thought of another drinking game, though. Every time somebody says the name of a show that could be an HR title, like What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah.
The Good Girl. We could just we should be drinking.
Oh my God. That, I think Tim Sackett, I hate to give him more publicity because he has plenty, but he put out on Twitter that he was looking for the name of his next book.
Yes.
People were just throwing shit at him. So shoot at him, shirt at him. I'm editing this one. So
no swearing allowed. That's good to know.
I might have to be creative. We'll see how creative we can get. But
beep it out.
Or if I could get the Good Place shirt to go over that. We'll see how, like I said, I'll see how creative I can get. But, I think that's a good point, Melanie. There's so many good HR book titles out there.
Well, as we start wrapping up, I want to ask each of you, knowing that we're not going to have in-person events soon, but I'm sure you all have events of some type going on, webinars, virtual presentations, conferences of some type somewhere out there. Melanie, I'll start with you. What do you got coming up in the next little bit, maybe the rest of the summer and fall?
So next week, I'm actually on a podcast, and I'm going to be talking about the future of learning, and particularly what we could be doing in our city here, Calgary, but then how we can expand that to provinces, nationwide, to other nations. The whole nature of learning has transformed with the move to online, and it's really reinventing and forcing us to relook at the post-secondary education landscape, but also just learning in general. So I'm doing that. I'm in the process of working with an organization where we're going to look at, I'll be facilitating an online group where we look at diversity, equity, and inclusion, so everyone can roll their eyes and go, oh no, not again. But what we want to do in this workshop is look at actual actions. What can we do to create resources that we as HR professionals can use and go to so that we can have these meaningful and very difficult conversations? Our world has experienced some tough times, and we need to address these issues, but we as the HR profession, we keep saying, we're the heart and the soul of an organization. We need to have these conversations. We have some momentum built up now in acknowledging the racial strife that people have and will continue to experience. But I think it's one thing to talk about it, but we need to develop tools and resources and action plans. So I'm going to be facilitating an online workshop talking about that.
Steve, how about you?
Well, I was scheduled to speak at several state conferences this year, plus the annual conference, and so most of them have been canceled. I have to decide if I can do Alabama. They're trying to do a mix of either virtual or in person, so I'm not sure, because I'm going to fly next week. I'm going to DC, and it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to step out and take the risk. But I'm going to do the tri-state, which was Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut state conference online. And Pennsylvania hasn't decided yet, but I'm supposed to do them hopefully in person, but it could be online. And then the National Industry Liaison Group, a non-SHRM thing. They're EEO and AA professionals, in-house professionals. I was supposed to be their keynote in June. So now I'm going to do a webinar for them. And I get stupid requests all the time, which is very humbling. So who knows? I'm online way too much as it is. They're going to get Steve Brown fatigue. And but I'm very fortunate. I'm sure other things will pop up.
Tracy?
Yeah, much like Steve, I had a lot. I think I had 7 in 7 weeks in the spring, and they all,
Ooh.
it was like,
Wow.
yeah, it was when it was going to be gone. It's just one after the other all over the country, like just really cool align. And then, you watch, and obviously, so most postponed till next year or get canceled outright. But like Steve, I'm also doing the Tri-State Charm, which is virtual. One of the ones I was really excited about, I was one of the keynotes for the Arizona SHRM conference, which was kind of weird but good. So one of their coordinators saw me speak in Vegas and wanted me to close out their conference on technology. So I'm weaving in a virtual keynote on combining the human factors of technology with the future of the HR professional.
Nice.
So not
Very
not sure
nice.
what that's going to look like yet, but that'll be fun, a fun challenge. And I don't know if any of you know Julie Turney from Barbados. She's amazing.
Yes.
So I'm going to do her podcast. She's just terrific. And I have a few other things going on. And like Steve, I'm not getting, I can't even imagine the requests you get, Steve, but I'm getting a few really like fun things, and it's neat. It's neat to kind of stretch myself and to do things in a space that I hadn't really thought of before. So I'm trying to expand my what I do and how I put myself out there. It's fun.
We call this the extroversion conversion.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
We're pulling you to our side.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Yeah.
Wendy,
you can see I'm all red, you can see that's why I wore like a high neck shirt. So.
Wendy, what do you have going on? What do you have scheduled?
Well, like I said earlier, I hope to be in Orlando in August. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed that John and I will be in Ohio in September. Fingers crossed again. I can finally get La Rosa's and see what all the fuss is about. Although I think earlier today somebody mentioned that pizza was supposed to be showing up at our doorstep if we attended some talk at noon, but I never saw any pizza. So
they went and did this deep dish insult. Oh, Chicago pizza. Well, you're all dead to me. So there you
go. So hopefully that will happen. Those are the two that I feel like I'm missing something. I'm not sure. What do you have on the docket?
Ohio SHRM hopefully will happen. I'm speaking at DC Podfest in November, talking about corporate podcasting again. I'm apparently going to be doing something with a European HR tech group. I don't know. I to be determined. Some kind of online event that they're doing. I don't know. Somebody contacted me. They said, "We love what you do. Would you take part?" I'm like,
wow, that's awesome.
Like, okay.
Always,
cool.
I have fun. This is fun. So
yeah,
we'll see. We'll see. Listen, this has been a tremendous pleasure, as it always would be. I knew it would be, no doubt. And particularly when we started talking about let's put one of these events together, and we said who should we get? We got the names. I was like, Wendy, it's a no-brainer. We got to make this happen.
Yeah.
I'm sure that most of the people, if you're watching this on Twitter and tweeting in real time, thank you for doing that.
Yes, thank you.
Bananas. If you're after the fact, and you may not know these folks, Steve, how do people reach you out there?
2 places, primarily Twitter at SBrownHR and E on the end of Brown, and LinkedIn. Those are my 2 best places.
Melanie, how about you?
So yes, I'm on Twitter as well. Twitter would be at double M, so the word double M Peacock. And on LinkedIn, you'll find me under Dr. Melanie Peacock.
And Tracy?
On Twitter at Tracy Spahn, it's Tracy with an IE, and on LinkedIn, Tracy Spanenberg, and SPONENBERG. So love to connect. I always have to like think as I'm saying that. So there's a lot of N's and E's.
We do this all the time.
Yeah.
So Wendy, how about you? What's the easiest way for listeners to find you out there?
Easiest way is on my blog, mydailyjourney.com. Daily is D as in dog, AILEY. Yes, Tracy, I have to spell it every single time. Yeah, it's never right. Or that's, if you find me on Twitter, the 2nd and 4th Sunday of each month as part of our HR Social Hour Twitter chat, you will find me there, 7 p.m. Eastern time. How about you, John?
JohnThurman.com for all things John Thurman, and for the podcast, HR Social Hour Podcast.podbean.com. Listen, rate, review, share, subscribe. I'm going to start asking people to subscribe. If you're
Yes.
watching this on YouTube, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Nobody really is watching us here. Watching this, I hope, and maybe that'll change. But go find us on your whatever your platform of choice is for your podcast pleasure. Listen to us there. International watchers, listeners, contact us. We have gifts. We'd like to send you something for being part of our community. Thank you all once again for doing this. It's tremendous fun. I cannot wait to see you all in person and thank you and buy you your beverage of choice.
Yes.
So for the HR Social Hour Half Hour Podcast, I'm John.
And I'm Wendy. And as always, be sure to connect,
give back, and network.
Network.
Take care, everybody.
We'll see you soon.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.